The story begins on a hillside in California, where the morning fog rolls gently over the coastal range. The year is 1977, and in the quiet suburban streets of San Mateo, the light falls soft and golden through the branches of old oak trees. The houses here sit on sloping lawns, their windows facing westward toward the distant Pacific Ocean. In one of these homes, a family of 6 is waking to the sound of birds and the distant hum of early traffic on the El Camino Real. The air smells of eucalyptus and dry grass, a scent that lingers in memory long after childhood fades. This is a place where seasons blend into one another without harsh edges, where summer stretches lazily into autumn, and winter means only a softer shade of light. The Brady household is unremarkable from the outside, a 2-story home with a wide driveway and a backyard that slopes down toward a cluster of trees. But inside these walls, something is quietly taking root. A young boy named Thomas Edward Brady Jr. is learning what it means to compete, to lose, to try again. He is the youngest of 4 children, the only son, doted on by 3 older sisters who teach him resilience through endless games in the backyard. The grass is worn thin in patches where they play, and the fence bears the scuffs of countless missed catches and wild throws. This is the first classroom of a future champion, though no one in this quiet neighborhood would ever guess it. The lessons here are not written on chalkboards, but etched into muscle memory under the warm California sun. In the afternoons, when school lets out and the shadows grow long across the pavement, young Tom walks home with his backpack slung over one shoulder. The route takes him past rows of mid-century homes painted in pastel yellows and pale blues, their gardens filled with bougainvillea and rosemary bushes. Neighbors wave from their porches, and the sound of sprinklers clicking through their cycles provides a gentle percussion to the walk. Sometimes he stops at the park near his house, a wide green expanse framed by Monterey pines, where older kids are already gathering for pickup games. He watches them for a while, studying their movements, the way they throw and catch, the angles they take when they run. Even at a young age, there is a stillness in him, an observing quality that separates him from the more boisterous children. He is not the loudest or the fastest or the most naturally gifted. But there is something in the way he watches, the way he waits, that hints at a patience far beyond his years. The park empties slowly as the sun dips lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and lavender, and he turns toward home, where the kitchen light glows warm against the deepening dusk. The Brady kitchen is the heart of the house, a room filled with the aroma of simmering pasta sauce and the sound of multiple conversations happening at once. His mother, Gallon, moves between the stove and the counter with practiced ease, her presence a steady anchor for the family. His father, Tom Sr., sits at the kitchen table reviewing paperwork from his insurance business, but his attention is never too far from his children. The 3 sisters fill the room with laughter and stories from their day, and young Tom takes his place among them, absorbing the warmth and the noise and the unspoken understanding that this is what matters most. On the refrigerator door, held by magnets shaped like fruit, are report cards and crayon drawings and a schedule of weekend sports events. The family calendar is a mosaic of obligations, softball games, school plays, parent-teacher conferences, but somehow they always find time to sit together for dinner. These evenings in the Brady kitchen are not historic in any obvious way. There are no cameras, no speeches, no dramatic turning points. But they're the foundation upon which everything else will be built. The steadiness of this home, the quiet reliability of parents who show up, the gentle competition among siblings who love each other fiercely, all of it settles into the bones of the youngest child, forming a core of stability that will carry him through decades of chaos and pressure. On weekends, the family often drives north across the Golden Gate Bridge to spend time with extended family or simply to watch the sailboats on the bay. The bridge itself is a marvel that never grows old, its orange towers rising out of the morning mist like something from a painting, the cables sweeping downward in perfect arcs. Young Tom presses his face to the car window as they cross, watching the water glitter far below, the city of San Francisco receding behind them, the green hills of Marin County approaching ahead. These drives are quiet interludes in a busy childhood, Moments when the world slows down and the only sound is the hum of tires on pavement and the soft murmur of his parents' conversation in the front seat. Sometimes they stop at a vista point and step out into the brisk bay air, the wind whipping through their hair, the smell of salt and sagebrush filling their lungs. His father points toward the distant horizon and talks about the importance of seeing the whole field, understanding where you are in relation to everything else. It sounds like a geography lesson, but years later, it will echo in the mind of a quarterback scanning a defense, seeing the whole picture before anyone else does. Baseball is his first love, a sport that fills the long California summers with the crack of wooden bats and the smell of leather gloves. He is a catcher, a position that suits his temperament, crouched behind home plate, observing everything, directing his teammates, absorbing the physical toll without complaint. The baseball diamond at his local park is a modest affair, with chain-link fences and wooden bleachers that grow warm in the afternoon sun. The grass in the outfield is patchy and brown by August, but no one seems to mind. The games stretch on for hours, the innings blending into one another, the score often forgotten by the time the streetlights flicker on. His father coaches his teams, instilling not just technique, but a philosophy of effort and attention to detail. There is a particular evening that stands out in family lore, a game under the lights, the sky a deep velvet blue, moths dancing around the field lamps, and young Tom behind the plate, calling pitches with a seriousness that makes the other parents smile. He is 10 years old, maybe 11, but he carries himself like someone much older. After the game, win or lose, they stop for ice cream at a shop on 3rd Avenue, and the sweetness of vanilla on a warm night becomes inextricably linked with the satisfaction of having given everything you have. High school brings new challenges and new landscapes. Junipero Serra High School sits on a hilltop with views stretching toward the San Francisco Bay, its campus a collection of tan stucco buildings and manicured athletic fields. The football stadium is modest by Texas or Florida standards, just a few thousand seats, but to the teenagers who play there under the Friday night lights, it feels like the center of the universe. Tom arrives as a lanky freshman, still growing into his frame, his voice cracking, his confidence not yet matching his ambition. The coaches see something in him, a work ethic, a willingness to study film when other kids are at parties, a quiet intensity during practice, but the physical gifts are still developing. He shares time with other quarterbacks, waits his turn, learns to compete without complaint. The practice field becomes his sanctuary, a place where the rest of the world falls away and all that remains is the grass beneath his cleats, the weight of the football in his hand, the arc of a perfectly thrown spiral against the gray afternoon sky. On autumn days, when the fog sits low over the hills and the air carries the first hint of chill, the field is empty except for him and a few teammates, running routes long after the official practice has ended. The lights flicker on as dusk arrives, their orange glow reflecting off the damp grass, and still he throws, one pass after another, chasing a standard of perfection that exists only in his mind. The recruitment process begins quietly, letters arriving in the mail with university crests embossed on thick stationery. Most of the football powerhouses overlook him, too skinny, too slow, not enough arm strength according to the scouts who measure teenagers like livestock at a county fair. But the University of Michigan sees something different. Their coaches watch film of a kid who makes good decisions, who stands tall in the pocket, who wins games even when the statistics do not jump off the page. When the offer comes, it feels like a door opening onto a wider world. The decision to attend Michigan means leaving behind the gentle California climate for something entirely different, real winters, real pressure, a football stadium that holds over 100,000 people. On his last night in San Mateo before departing for college, he walks through the familiar rooms of his childhood home, running his hand along the wooden banister, pausing at the kitchen window that looks out over the backyard. The moon is full and bright, casting silver light across the lawn where he learned to throw a spiral, where his sisters taught him to be tough, where his father explained the importance of seeing the whole field. He carries this place with him as he boards the plane, a landscape of golden light and gentle fog that will remain his internal compass through all the winters to come. The plane descends through a layer of gray cloud, and suddenly there it is, Michigan in late summer, a patchwork of green and gold stretching toward a flat horizon. Ann Arbor is nothing like San Mateo. The air is thicker here, heavy with humidity, and the trees are different too, oaks and maples and elms that will soon explode into the brilliant reds and oranges of a Midwestern autumn. The University of Michigan campus sprawls across the landscape with the confidence of an institution that has been shaping young minds since 1817. Its buildings are a mix of collegiate Gothic and modern glass, limestone facades adorned with ivy, bell towers that chime the hours across leafy quadrangles. Tom Brady arrives as an unknown freshman among dozens of new recruits, a name on a roster sheet, a face in a crowded meeting room. The coaches have brought in several quarterbacks this year, and he is near the bottom of the depth chart, 7th on a list of 7, a detail that would discourage a lesser spirit. But there is something about being underestimated that suits him, that fuels a quiet fire behind his eyes. The dormitory room where he unpacks his belongings is small and unremarkable, with cinder block walls and a window that looks out onto a parking lot. The view is not inspiring, but he is not here for the view. He is here to work, to wait, to prove something that cannot yet be spoken aloud. The Michigan football facility is called Schembechler Hall, named after the legendary coach whose ghost still seems to roam the corridors. Inside, the walls are lined with photographs of past champions, trophies gleaming behind glass cases, the weight of tradition pressing down on every player who walks these halls. The indoor practice field is a vast cavern of artificial turf and fluorescent light, where the sounds of cleats and whistles echo endlessly. In the early mornings, before the sun has fully risen over Ann Arbor, Tom walks to the facility alone, his breath visible in the cold air, his backpack heavy with playbooks and notebooks. The equipment managers are often the only other people present, preparing for the day ahead with quiet efficiency. There is a peace to these early hours, a stillness that reminds him of those foggy California mornings, and he uses this time to throw passes into a net, to study film in an empty meeting room, to build the habits that will sustain him through years of waiting. The waiting itself becomes a teacher. He learns patience not as a virtue but as a practice, something you do every day like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. The depth chart does not move quickly. He remains buried behind more highly touted recruits, some of whom will transfer, some of whom will fade, some of whom will simply prove not good enough. But he stays, and he works, and he watches. Autumn in Ann Arbor is a revelation. The trees on campus transform week by week, their leaves shifting from green to yellow to crimson, until the whole town seems to be on fire with color. On game days, the streets fill with a sea of maize and blue, fans spilling out of bars and restaurants, the air thick with the smell of grilled sausages and the sound of marching bands warming up in the distance. Michigan Stadium, known to everyone as the Big House, sits like a great bowl carved into the earth, its capacity exceeding 100,000 souls. When it fills on a Saturday afternoon, the roar is like nothing else in sports, a physical sensation, a vibration that travels through the concrete and into your bones. Tom spends his first seasons watching from the sidelines, a headset clamped over his ears, a clipboard in his hands, studying the flow of the game with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. He watches the starting quarterback, studies his footwork, memorizes his decisions, imagines himself in every situation. The stadium lights come on as afternoon games stretch into evening, their white glare transforming the field into a stage, the surrounding darkness making the spectacle feel intimate despite the enormous crowd. From the sideline, he can see the steam rising from the bodies of his teammates in the cold air, can hear the individual voices in the stands when the crowd briefly quiets. These are the moments that shape him, not the highlights, not the glory, but the long watchful hours of someone who is not yet called, but preparing anyway. The winters are long and brutal, a test of endurance for a California boy who has never known temperatures that plunge below zero. Snow blankets the campus for months at a time, transforming the quadrangles into silent white expanses, muffling the sounds of the world. The practice facility becomes a refuge, its heated interior a welcome contrast to the frozen landscape outside. On dark winter afternoons, when the sun sets before 4 o'clock and the sky takes on the color of slate, Tom makes his way through the snow-covered paths, his footsteps the first marks on fresh powder. Inside, he works on his mechanics, the drop back, the release, the follow-through, thousands of repetitions that will eventually become as natural as breathing. The coaches begin to notice the improvement, the subtle refinements in his technique, the way he commands the huddle during scout team drills. Slowly, incrementally, he climbs the depth chart. By his junior year, he is competing for the starting job against a highly touted recruit named Drew Henson, a battle that will consume the attention of the program and the fans. The competition is fierce, but never personal, two young men pushing each other toward excellence. They share the field in a rotation that satisfies no one, each drive a referendum on their respective futures. The tension is constant, exhausting, but it forges something in Tom that will define his entire career, the ability to perform under the pressure of knowing that every single snap could be his last as the starter. The University of Michigan campus extends far beyond the football facilities, and Tom finds quiet corners where he can escape the pressures of competition. The law library is a Gothic masterpiece with soaring vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows, and long oak tables where students study in reverent silence. He comes here sometimes in the evenings, not to read legal texts, but simply to sit in the presence of something old and beautiful, to let his mind settle after the chaos of practice and meetings. The light filtering through the colored glass casts patterns on the wooden floors, reds and blues and golds that shift as the sun moves across the sky. Outside, the diagonal pathways of the central campus crisscross beneath towering elms, their branches forming a canopy that is lush and green in summer, bare and skeletal in winter. Students hurry past with their collars turned up against the cold, their conversations brief, their breath forming small clouds. He is one of them in some ways, a student with exams to take and papers to write and a future to figure out, but he is also a part, carrying the invisible weight of expectations that most of his classmates will never understand. The balance is delicate, and he learns to compartmentalize, to be fully present wherever he stands, whether in a lecture hall or a huddle. Senior year arrives with the clarity of a cold autumn morning. He has won the starting job outright, no longer sharing it with anyone, and the season spreads out before him like a landscape waiting to be explored. The team is good, not great, but he leads them to victories that feel improbable, comebacks that seem to defy the logic of the game. The Orange Bowl at the end of the season is played under the bright Florida sun, a world away from the frozen practice fields of Ann Arbor, and he outperforms every expectation, throwing for 369 yards and 4 touchdowns. The scouts are watching now, their notebooks filling with observations, their opinions shifting ever so slightly. But the draft is still months away, and uncertainty remains his constant companion. On his last day in Ann Arbor, he walks through the empty stadium one final time. The field is covered in a thin layer of snow, the seats are vacant, and the only sound is the wind moving through the steel girders of the upper deck. The big house is silent, holding its breath, waiting for the next season and the next quarterback. He stands at midfield and turns in a slow circle, memorizing every detail, the press box, the student section, the tunnel where the team runs onto the field. Then he walks away, into a future that no one can predict, least of all him.